bet every founder gets overwhelmed by the complexities of building a brand from scratch. Imagine having a tool that makes it all effortless. That's where Blursday swoops in. Hi there, I'm Ankita Bhava, your host at Follow Startups, and today we are joined by Dipika Menon, the co-founder of Blursday. Dipika has over 7 years of experience in branding and marketing, and with a wealth of experience from Unacademy to Cred and a knack for transforming branding with AI, Dipika is here to share how Blursday is changing the game. Hi, Dipika. Welcome to Follow Startups.
Hey Ankita, thank you so much for having me.
Dipika, it's a pleasure to have you here today. So, before we jump into Blursday, I'm certain our audience would be excited to learn about the person driving the business forward. So, could you kindly share a bit about your background and how your experiences led you here?
Right. So I actually very accidentally ended up in marketing. Started my career with Goldman Sachs. A little close to a year down the line, I sort of realized that I wanted to do a lot more than just basically push a couple of metrics on a task list. And that's when I took the leap of faith and sort of like quit. Started taking up a little bit of projects on the side. And that's when I came across Unacademy. So we were a very small, like growing team at that point in time. Joined them literally, I think, when we were below 20 members. So almost like in the founding team or the early team over there. Spend the next 2 years just doing a lot of things, right from retention to marketing to branding. And that's where I sort of like fell in love with the whole concept of creating a brand identity, understanding your users at such a deep level, and then sort of being able to communicate impactful content to all of them. So a little post down the line, moved to Cred, where again worked a lot on understanding, the users, building out the early brand, all of that stuff, and then again to a couple of other startups like Bases and Walrus, which is a Y Combinator backed startup. And sort of built out all of their brand identities, worked very much with the founders to fix out, the understanding of the brand, understanding of the users, and how we could get to the users in the most frictionless way possible. So after working with a lot of these startups, I sort of realized that branding can, to a large extent, be automated, right? When we are automating so many tasks across, it's still very much a manual process. And so that's why, started toying with a couple of ideas, landed on this particular idea, it started taking off. And that's how, we're building our Blursday today.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, tell us what exactly is Blursday, which first of all is a very quirky name also. So also tell us the story behind it.
So Blursday basically means, okay, so when you do something that you really love, right? Um, your days become very blurry, right? You don't no longer remember whether it's Monday, whether it's Tuesday. You
Yeah.
just like love doing whatever you like. And that's the main idea behind Thursday. So that's why the name sort of came up. With respect to what we sort of do, we are a branding automation tool. So, say for example, if you're a founder who is just getting started out and you need your brand guidelines set, or you need to understand, your brand identity, that's something that we sort of help out with. We take in a couple of information that from you, and then we sort of build out the entire brand, a comprehensive, say, brand guidelines, which encompasses your tone of voice, your communication guidelines, your usage guidelines, a couple of templates, to basically help you get off the ground. That's basically for early teams. If you are someone who already has all of this, then we help you, sort of enforce it consistently across. So what we also sort of noticed was brand building, of course, is one aspect of things, brand guideline building. But you also need to be consistent with the output that you put. Like, the content needs to sound like the brand always, or something as complex as even the choice of collaborators that you get into partnerships with. And that's why we sort of help out. So we take these guidelines, we feed it into the back end. Blursday can review anything that you do on the marketing side, on the product side of things. give you suggestions based on your brand. And at the same time, start generating a lot of content as well. So, if you want to write out, I know a lot of folks want to do SEO at scale. So, and it's now humanly like impossible to get the same tone of voice in every article that you publish, right? When you're publishing at scale, like 10, 15 a week or whatever. So, Blursday is able to ensure consistency in just generating that content as well. In the future, we want to also move towards, and this is very much in the works as well, move towards generating images for your brand, which is going to be very much on brand, which is going to be, usable across your social media or any other collaterals. But basically, the idea is to become that second brain of like a branding manager or a marketing manager that helps them make those decisions faster, and yeah, execute much faster.
So Deepika, Blur's core product, Review Raven, it offers AI-driven design reviews as far as I understand. So can you elaborate on the key features of this tool and how it addresses common branding challenges for startups?
So, Review Raven is actually a Figma plugin. So it's not changing any. So one huge learning that we had was don't change habits, right? People have a certain way of doing things. Help them do the thing like, more efficiently or faster, but don't change habits. So that's why we developed this whole plugin, which sort of has it remembers all your brand guidelines. You need to feed it in once. And then anything that you design, which is, you could be your UI, UX screens, it could be your social media, it could be posters. There's so much that we do on Figma, right? When it like, you have a designer who does it, and then you sort of maybe as a founder or as a marketing manager sits and reviews each of these. So and that reviewer process one takes close to about a few hours to just like sit and pinpoint what all needs to be changed, 2 to 3 iterations easily, where you have to go back and forth on all of this. So what Review Raven does is that it remembers everything that you've sort of fed it in terms of your brand guidelines. Now, what it does is it scrapes through entirely all the screens that you wanted to scrape through, and it checks for discrepancies. So, I'll give you an example of fintech specifically, right? So at one point you have your brand guidelines, but you also have your compliance guidelines,
Hmm.
which is either your SEBI or RBI guidelines that sort of kick in. So what Blursday's Review Raven does is it checks whether there is any inconsistency, not just in the brand, but with the compliances as well. Say, for example, if you're not allowed to say 15% return month on month or whatever that is, any of those don'ts is what it sort of scrapes through. So it helps with copywriters not make errors in the copies as well, and with designers also not put in, say, some design element which could get flagged in, when the ads are running, etc.
Hmm.
So that effectively gets done in like over like a little over like 30 to 40 seconds, right? And you get this comprehensive set of things that you can change. And that reduces the amount of back and forth, and it reduces the time, of course,
Yeah.
with the back and forth. So that's where, the Figma plugin sort of helps.
Amazing. So, Deepika, now coming to the customers, tell us who are the main beneficiaries of Blur's Day branding solutions? Like, are there any particular industries that you are focusing on? And if so, why?
Right. So from our inception, like when we sort of put out early feelers about the product, we noticed that while everyone sort of needs branding, like any early team member, any early team operator, etc., needs branding, right? Where we've seen the strongest use cases actually with fintech and medtech. And that's also to a large extent because of the kind of regulations that they have to do responsible marketing, whether they like it or not, right?
Hmm.
The fintech industry specifically to a large extent, because you just cannot say anything that you like. You cannot just put in any sort of imagery that you like. You have to comply with certain guidelines. And people are dealing with money, right? So people want to induce that, that trust level amongst their users. And, that don't worry, you're safe with using XYZ product. And that seems to be the strongest in both the fintech and the medtech space. So that's where we've seen that we've been able to sort of drive most value also in these two areas.
Hmm.
Not to say that others don't need it. We are, of course, adding it again based on as we sort of get a lot more data, just understand a lot more use cases where, say a D2C brand might need it a lot more. That's the next one that we're sort of exploring. D2C brands or maybe agri-tech needs it a lot more. Those are industries that we are exploring right now, but immediate use cases where we're able to serve for is the fintech and the medtech space.
Got it. So how do you ensure that your branding and compliance guidelines are adaptable to the diverse needs of these startups, particularly in fintech and medtech, like you said?
Yeah, so at least for now, we work very much with the founders. So,
Hmm.
my co-founder and I, we sit down with the founders and understand what are certain nuances, understand and document their learnings that they've had, in that while either speaking to users, while speaking to say regulatory authorities, what are certain nuances that they have,
Hmm.
and start training the entire model based on their needs. So the entire idea, of course, in the future also is to train client-specific models. So the output also then is more reliable. It is literally like your personal assistant on the branding side that keeps learning about your brand and your specific moat that you have with respect to, say, your competitors, right? So that's where we sort of realized also that to a large extent you need to, like, founders know so much more about their audience and their industry than, say, somebody else. So right now we're working very much with early founders, people who are forthcoming to sort of like try out pilots with us, then sort of move to retainers. So yeah, that's how we're sort of tackling that space.
Got it. And speaking of that, we'd love to hear about a success story where Blursday services made a significant impact on a client's branding strategy. So, any example?
Yeah, so we do have this is a medtech example actually. This was actually one of our cohort members. So we were incubated at IIM Bangalore. We just finished our incubation, like I think last 2 months ago. So one of the startups over there. So she was building a medtech space. So she was building out not a marketplace, but a sort of a space where doctors and patients could sort of get treatment that is holistic in nature. So not just limited to, say, allopathy, not just limited to Ayurveda, but like across
Hmm.
all the spaces. So for her, it was super important because she was also launching the brand offline. So she was making wellness centers. She's very much making, I think she's just launched her first wellness center in Bangalore. But for her, it is super important because there are two things at the same time, right? One is to figure out the brand identity for the doctors, figure out the brand identity for patients, and build a trustable online presence. The second is build a trustable offline presence, right? With the wellness centers.
Hmm.
So, what typically would take her, and she was very reluctant to go to an agency also at that time, was because she did not have time. She had to launch within a month.
Hmm.
She needed everything done like quickly, but at the same time, she wanted to make sure that, every nook and corner of the brand is covered, right? And that's where I think we were able to test the limits of Blursday as well. So, right from figuring out what her brand stands for, what are certain do's and don'ts of her brand, to nailing down the exact words that the brand will never use, to figuring out what kind of feeling that a doctor should feel when he or she reads a particular
Wow.
type of copy, to what kind of feelings does a patient sort of get when they see a particular pamphlet, etc. So we were able to sort of get to those nuances, and we were able to cover a lot in terms of usage guidelines. So Blursday was able to sort of create templates for her, for not just social media, but how her banners should look, how her pamphlets should look, how even the doctors, they have this card, right, which they
Yeah.
carry. where they sort of, so we designed that also to sort of make sure that there's consistency everywhere. So the uniforms, any sort of branding material, we were able to cover all of that, and give her like a comprehensive, she calls it her brand Bible, because she's like, that is literally my go-to document now. And we were able to sort of deliver all of this, and with the least amount of back and forth, right? Like that was like maybe two reviews that we did with her where she needed a couple of changes that were very specific to her learnings. And then we handed over like everything, in like literally maybe a week maximum, within like all of those. So that was where actually we tested out Blursday to a very huge extent, because our other users did not really have an offline presence and didn't need these particular
Hmm.
specified nuances, but we were able to test that out very well.
So, Deepika, in terms of your current stage of, growth and development, where would you place Blursday today?
Okay, so we actually move very fast, right from idea to validating the POC to having like a proof of concept and prototype out. I think we did all of that in less than a month, and then we started doing pilots, right? Because we said the maximum we can learn is through active
Yeah.
pilots. So our first few pilots were, of course, free, because it took a lot of convincing to get people to try out a product that is very much in their, nascent stages. But it soon sort of flew well. So I like to sort of say that the product is very much still in its MVP phase, but at the same time, we have folks who are returning. We have that retention number in, and we also, to a large extent, are able to tap into a few folks who want to sort of build out their brands as well. So I think in the product journey, I would say there's a long way to go with whatever we want to do with the product as well. But I think it's good that we're getting validation much faster. Our learning cycle is a lot faster, and people are coming back to, sort of say, either refer their other co-friend founders, or have certain for this MedTech startup itself, right? So she keeps coming back to me saying, can you sort of build out a specific set of guidelines for this particular use case, etc. as well. So we sort of see that there is, it doesn't end with just the entire umbrella of brand building, but even within the brand building space, you have certain campaign based
Yeah.
guidelines that you need, etc., which Blursday is sort of facilitating as well. So that's where a lot of the repeat customers are coming in.
Got
But
it.
that's where we're at.
So, do you also have any plans in the pipeline to expand your business presence beyond the borders? Any customers, from beyond India?
Actually, surprisingly, our early customers have been VC-backed startups in the US and the UK.
Oh,
And that was purely because I think of the network that, so because I've also worked in VC-backed startups, so reaching out to them also was a lot easier. And, there was a whole, camaraderie over there as well. But what we've sort of noticed is that this product is to a large extent universal. Like we can take it out whenever we want. The idea, we are focusing very much on India-based fintechs is because we understand this area a little bit more.
hmm.
Having been in Thread, my co-founder's also been in the fintech space as well. So we are able to sort of relate very fast to certain nuances. Just as SEBI guidelines, ठीक है, we know SEBI guidelines, we know the RBI guidelines. So that's much easier for us. The idea, yes, is if it is beyond, again, the pilots that we've done in the past with these VC-backed startups, some of them were in the medtech and in the fintech space, but then they did not need compliance guidelines. They needed only brand guidelines.
Hmm.
So they needed brand guidelines to be enforced, basically. So it's not to say that we are not looking at a global market. It's, of course, definitely going to be there. But with us being like a small team, we just don't want to, sort of like fellow everywhere and do a bad job. We'd rather
Yeah,
just pick a
no.
small niche and sort of go down that route. But anybody who does reach out, through an inbound query, who's interested in sort of trying out the product, we definitely sort of entertain them as well.
Fair
So yeah.
enough. So where is your office?
Bangalore.
You're
So I
located
think
in
every
Bangalore.
yeah, so I think every startup either is in Bangalore or Bombay or Pune, I think. But we've been fortunate to be based out of Bangalore. Again, the team is of course remote, like my co-founder and I are remote, the other team members also are remote.
Hmm.
But it's so much easier because when we want to do a demo with like a particular founder,
Hmm.
it's just like चलो third wave पे demo कर लेते हैं या मतलब we just go to a
Yeah,
Starbucks and do demo.
fair enough.
So it has its advantages of being in Bangalore, I think.
No, absolutely. So, Deepika, now let's touch upon your business model a little bit. So, give us a sense of Blurstay revenue structure and how do you provide your pricing for services like branding guidelines, design reviews, and even content generation for that matter?
So it's very much so there are two models of sorts. The first one is just creating the brand guidelines. And the reason we've bifurcated it also is because some teams already have that, right? So it doesn't make sense to go through that entire exercise again. So for teams that want to sort of build out their brand guidelines, we do that for a flat fee of $500, which comes to about 40 to 43,000 bucks. As against, hiring an agency,
Hmm.
etc. And we sort of give the first draft we sort of give for review to them within like 48 hours. So internally we generated, we do quick hygiene checks and then we send it to them for a review. And within close to a week, I think we're able to close out those guidelines for the users. So that happens, that's a one-time sort of revenue stream. The second one is the recurring revenue stream, which is where suppose they want these guidelines to be enforced. So
Hmm.
that's where they start using the Slack integration, the Figma plugin, etc., and the content creation. So that all of that sort of comes in within what we call the Blursday suite, and that is about $150 a month. Again, this is of course for earlier stage startups. If the team is very big and it's very complex, then we sort of work it out.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
How much can we stretch this product? What can we sort of offer in addition as well? And any of the other services that come at an additional cost. So that's very custom. It's a very custom made solution, but typically it's 500 plus like 150 a month.
Got it. And while we are on the numbers, are you funded?
We're very bootstrapped right now. So I think we've also had the touchwood, had the experience of being in the startup ecosystem. So, our entire idea also with my co-founder and I was ki, let's bootstrap it as long as we can.
Hmm.
So now that we've started generating revenue, I am starting to have these conversations with early investors, starting to have, raise our first round, but very bootstrapped for now.
Got it, got it. Hey, so we'd love to be introduced to your co-founder, Shubh Ketan Agarwal. So tell us
Yes.
what role does he play at Blursday and how does his background complement your vision in the company?
So Ketan's actually been so Ketan was building way before like Blursday's idea of course came through as well. So Ketan and I met in 21. We were in a YC back startup. We were building out so he was a founding engineer over there. And I of course was brought in to sort of help out with the brand, etc. So after I moved out of after I moved out of the startup, we sort of stayed in touch, etc. And it was just always like, "Kya chal raha hai? What are you doing? What are you building right now? What's happening, etc." So when we decided to come together and sort of build out the entire product, is when I think his what he brings in with respect to the learnings on the tech side, right? Like um the vast experience of like the fintech space itself, it was so naturally easy for us to integrate and understand the problems that these founders in the fintech space were facing. To actually, building out the prototype in literally like having everything up and running in like less than a week, validating it with folks and then sort of pushing it out. I think Ketan brought in a lot of knowledge with like AI, with his understanding of stable diffusion, his understanding of like working with like these deep tech models, etc. And I think Ketan to a large extent is very naturally curious. So I think he's told me this very interesting story. When he was in college, he built out this little rover that would move around in the dark and take images, and was able to take, like, sort of very clear images back in 2017-ish, right?
Wow.
Um, and yeah, so he's worked with like these OpenCV models. He's worked with like building this rover, etc. So it's always come out of a place of passion, right? And that is so important because it's tough, like when you're building out. I think in the early days, everybody is like trying to just keep things together. So it's just been, I think, his vision more than mine. It's just mine is on the lines of like bringing in business and like ensuring that we're able to sustain for the next month. I think Ketan's this entire product, or how this product has shaped up, is Ketan's baby of sorts, and he's very aggressive about it. Like when it comes to, why do we need to make a certain change, or like, again, both of us are very data driven. So if a particular decision we need to make, it's always made on, कि ये data hai, these many users are asking for this, so I will build out this particular feature. So that syncing, I think, has been, we've been lucky, touch wood,
Amazing.
to sort of have that in place.
I'm sure he'd love watching this interview, to watch you talk about him so passionately. So, Deepika, tell us, with the two of you, what's your total team strength? And, are you looking to hire somebody at this point?
Yeah, we're actually looking to build out our founding engineering team, actually. So, I mean, if anyone's watching and would love to apply, please do. So, I mean, for a long time, it was just Ketan and I building out this. We did a lot of plug and play. So, for a very long time, we had freelancers who would like come in and sort of help us out on a project basis. Again, we called in a lot of favors. You have
Hmm.
friends who can help you out over a weekend. They say you're stuck in a particular place, you just call them out to sort of like help you out there. So I think we've been very lucky with like the support system that we've had, either through like our networks or through folks who just really help out, when you really need them to. So that's how we've been surviving. We do have a couple of interns in the team as well, who've also been plugging in, playing. I think it's very important for both of us to get people who are um, willing to figure it out with us, right? The moment, I think, in interviews, people ask me saying ki, what are the processes that you already have? We are like, nahi, 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 ye nahi chalega.
Hmm.
We need somebody who's very open to sort of figuring things out with us. And we've been very lucky to have those kind of interns
Yeah.
sort of work with us as well. So yeah, I mean, looking to expand the team, and this is where we're at.
Amazing. So, Deepika, we've almost reached the end of this conversation, and now seems like a good time to ask you this. So, hey, tell us, how does the next 12 months for you look like? Are there, any new features or products in the pipeline that you are very excited about?
I think, okay, the next 12 months is a long time in like a startup's life
Yeah.
cycle. But
Okay,
I
let's talk
think,
about 6 months.
right. So I think the first one is to expand to more industries, understand with more industries, the nuances that they have, the problems that they face, and build out branding for them. Um, while we sort of do that, and while that research is going on, we want to continue to train our models, continue to train our client-specific models to sort of, start making smarter decisions, and help out the marketeers, right? So I think one good example would be if the model can sort of start not just generating, but start predicting what could happen in the future in, say, not just the industry, but in, say, social media, like taking in social media for example, right? um so now it's no longer a problem to create content. It's now a problem to create relevant content,
Yeah.
because we are constantly being pushed with so much information, right? And nobody consumes that kind of information, but we stop at something that makes sense to us. So getting those hits more than those misses, it's no
Hmm.
longer, I think, a quality game. So we're going down that quality route. Like if my model is able to understand a user segment so much and is able to say, tell a brand that, ABC is a good collaborator for you because your users spend so much time watching their content, or you should probably try out a campaign with another startup, because your user bases are similar or whatever that is. I think that is an interesting thing to sort of explore. I don't know how doable it is, but I think it's always good to be aggressive when
Yeah.
there's no point in doing a startup.
No, that's very positively ambitious. So, hey, so we also have plans to promote this video, this discussion to large enterprises, potential investors, and a broader startup ecosystem. So, is there anything specific that you'd like to mention that could help you find any external assistance that you require at this point? Like, consider this as your call for support.
Got it. I think the first thing is please try hard Thursday. I think that is where the major learning sort of happens. So I think one thing that I sort of do is whenever I come across any accelerator or any investor, I'm like, please, can you maybe drop in a word to your portfolio, right? If any
Hmm.
of them, if any of them could derive value from Thursday, would love to try it out with them, right? So I think as much as our fundraising is an important milestone, I think what's more important is having this deeper understanding of users. So anyone who does feel that they would like to be an early supporter in just trying out the product, giving us feedback, would love to sort of like speak with you all. But apart from that, I think, yeah, so that's where we're at.
Amazing. So, I'm genuinely looking forward to witnessing your future accomplishments and talking more about your milestones in our next episodes. So, Devika, before we wrap up, let's add a fun twist, with a quick lightning round. So, I've prepared 5 rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready? You have to
Yes.
answer them very quickly. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, question number one. A book or a podcast that you'd like to recommend to the youth that has greatly influenced your life or your career in, some sort of way.
I think right now I have been hogging all the YC videos, to a large extent. And that's a very founder first video thing. But I think anyone who is in the ecosystem of just even thinking of applying to an early stage startup or just starting their career in like an early stage startup, what I love about these videos is, and it's not just the YouTube section. Like even if you go into the website, there's a lot of like Paul Graham's essays.
Hmm.
There's a lot, of content that all the GPs have also put up. So, just go through all of them. Just reading their stories is very inspiring. Reading their failures is also very
Yeah,
comforting to a large extent because it makes them human. But I think that's a very great resource to tap into if you don't know anything, to just start learning it.
that's a good answer. Okay, question two. Which productivity tool or app do you find most helpful in managing your daily work?
More than a productivity tool, what I find useful is putting everything on your calendar. Whether it is a lunch break to whether you want to just take a stroll for 5 minutes, putting everything on a calendar makes it your 24 hours very visible to you.
Yeah.
And to a large extent, I think more than any tools, you will see that and you'll say, okay, I have this much time, so I need to do this much in this much time. This has really helped me stay, very on point, whether it is also switching off mentally. But that's
No,
something
I
that I saw.
second that. I second that 100%. Okay, question three. A fun fact about you that most people don't know yet.
Okay, so I think a bunch of fun facts. I don't know if they're fun, but okay. So I started learning French in 2019. I finished my C1 level a year and a half, 2 years ago actually. So I can speak French very fluently. I'm a self-taught crocheter, so I do a lot of crochet work as well and sort of sell it. And the proceeds I sort of use to look after a lot of abandoned animals. So I'm a staunch animal lover as well. Have a lot of rescues at home, cats and dogs. So we use like a lot of the proceeds that we get from the crochet to look after not just them, but to look after larger, like, cows, donkeys, horses, etc., who are abandoned or need some help, medically
Amazing.
as well.
Okay, so this is a fun one. I know you like it. So, Deepika, so there's a saying that don't tell me who you are, just tell me what brands you use. So, I want you to describe yourself using just the names of three brands.
I think yeah, I think H&M would be one. I use a lot of Apple products. I think Apple would be the second. And can I use Blursday because I use Blursday a lot as well.
Well, it is a brand, so yeah, that counts. Okay, great. Okay, question number fifth. So, what is your favorite quotation or mantra that you live by? It could be anything, any one line.
I think it's there on the website. And this is actually one that I just came across very accidentally. I think it was a forward in some book or something. But it said, in this world, if there's a book that hasn't been written, you should write it. And I think it's very much very relevant with what we're doing and very relevant with who Ketan and I are as well. अगर कोई सॉल्व कुछ नहीं कर रहा है तो चलो सॉल्व करते हैं. So I think that's something that we totally sort of live by.
And that's how, remarkable brands are built. So kudos. Last but not the least, what is your one piece of advice that you would give to a startup founder about branding?
I think understand your users. Go into the depth of what branding means, right? A lot of people, I think, a lot of founders that I speak to say that they want to build a brand like Apple, they want to build a brand like
Hmm.
Nike. What do those words mean, right? It doesn't just mean being premium or looking a particular way or feeling a particular way, but what do these brands mean? Try and understand, like, for example, as much as I also am an Apple user, I love Apple, and they do stand for the quality of their products. They do stand for the ease of use, which I completely agree they have managed to sort of do. You know, there's a dark side of things also, right? Like Nike has been known for their sweatshops.
Yeah.
Apple has been known to not help out the environment as much as they say that they do help out the environment. So when you make that choice of wanting to be like a particular brand, or you're also trying to carve out a niche for yourself, understand what are the repercussions of the downside of things, right?
Mm,
And how you will combat that in the future. And that very much comes from understanding how your users react to a particular thing. It's on one side saying that this is what my users are drawn to. This is the kind of messaging, or this is the kind of brand that my users are drawn to. But what are certain things that repulse my users? And just understanding those key factors can actually make you a much more respectable brand than you could ever sort of think of. So that's something that I sort of tell everyone that talks to me about branding. It's not talked about much, but important to.
100%. Hey, so I hope this was worthy of your time. So thank you so much for doing this with me today. And,
It was a great.
all the very best, all the very best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hey, but before I let you go, I want you to make a wish for Blursday that you hope comes true in the near future. Any wish.
That we're the next big deal. I really hope that we're I mean, I really hope that Blursday is one of those companies that is able to solve a very large problem in the future. I know that this is the problem that we're set out to sort of solve, but even if the problem evolves, I really hope that we build out something that is impactful, that is able to help out folks out there. And as much as we do want to grow fast, we do want to grow and get the whole market. I think what's important is growing ethically. So I think that's the topmost priority for us. So
Yeah,
I hope we become big, but I hope we become one of those respectable brands that have become big the right way.
absolutely. Cheers to your dedication, creativity, and the future of branding excellence. So, if you'd like to stay updated with the latest developments and business insights from Blursday, you can follow their channel on follow.us/startups. And thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.